Anyway, I was going to address how illegal this was in the day, and I look out here and I see some people that are kind of in my age range, or maybe a little younger, but I was expecting to maybe have to explain about zero tolerance and how dangerous this was. The first gathering that we had, Alexander Shulgin and his wife came down and kicked it off for us. And we had, I remember her coming up to me, and she pulled me aside, and she said, you know, we're on an FBI watch list, and you're going to be on it too. And I was like, yeah, right. So paranoid. But the next 2 months, every single time I saw a police car, I was pulled over and searched. Wow. Every single time, 6 times. If they were in front of me, behind me, other cars, middle of the afternoon, no matter what I was doing, I got pulled over and searched. And so I kind of became a believer in that. And of course, I had nothing on me. There was also, at the time, I was in Venice. I had read in LA Weekly that they had traps on the telephone so that if you were discussing things or that certain words would come up in conversation, and we weren't using any kind, because we weren't selling anything or, you know, we had no LSD lab in our house, then we weren't really that careful at first about what we were saying. And so I imagine that we might have been targeted, you know, for people checking this whole thing out. We had, actually that first meeting with the Shulgins, I remember Jack Herrera was there, and this is one of several times where I just stumbling into it as a young person had no idea these, you know, men and women had known each other forever, and they didn't all like each other. and here I am, just fighting them all over. And then they'd get there and go, oh, so-and-so's here. So Shulgin and Herrera disagreed on what substance would change the world, which you might imagine. I remember that the Shulgins would not let anyone smoke pot in the house. They were like, you cannot consume anything at all. So Jack just stood out on my sidewalk and puffed joint after joint after joint right in front of the house, which I didn't find out about it until later, but that was extremely illegal and scary at the time. But Venice being Venice, at the time, you know, we had prostitutes on the corner. It was like nobody really gave a shit. There were meetings where we had fire dancers out in the street and just blocked the street off. And nobody ever said anything about it. As the meetings went on, we determined not to have any sort of list. And I'm really sorry about that nowadays. I've got very few pictures. I've got, at one point, a few years ago, we had some people together, and we all sat down, and we tried to write down every meeting that we could remember and every speaker that we could remember, because we didn't take pictures. And there were a few times when we filmed or recorded the meetings, and you might see some of those on Lorenzo Haggerty's site, Matrix Masters. He did record a few, but it was never the crowd or anything. It was just of the speaker, and we were very careful not to get anybody on camera. There was definitely a fear of that. So that the political meetings that we had were some of my favorite, because I'm a rabble-rouser and very radical, and I wound up having an organization called Rave the Vote out of this, where we would go to festivals and sign up people on ecstasy to vote. Hundreds of them, you guys, hundreds of them. And I just remember at one point, the Rockefeller laws, they had the big demonstrations in New York, and the black DJs were just like, fuck the police, but the white DJs wouldn't take a stand on anything. And nobody seemed to care. And again, when I talk to kids about this, in pre-Obama world, it's hard to imagine people being so apolitical. But I would say I would blow up newspaper headlines and put them on a table along with my voter registration forms in our big, Rave the Vote thing. And I would say, look at this. Justice Kennedy says that we should all be seized and searched all the time, that would be more constitutional than just selecting people, that everyone should be subjected to that constantly. Would you like that? Would that affect your life at all? And they go, oh, yeah. And we, well, here, vote.